we're going to meet two Tasmanian craftsmen, woodcarver Bob Haslam and woodturner Cecil Eyre. First, let's find out about Huon pine. The Gordon River on Tasmania's west coast is the home of Huon pine. Green gold, as it was once known, is the best boat-building timber in the world. Huon pine was cut extensively here for 35 years and floated in log rafts down to the mill at Strawn. It grows near water in patches and takes 500 years to mature. Now only a few stands remain, preserved in forest reserves. This is Huon pine, isn't it, Bob?
That's Huon pine. That lay on the beach on the west coast for about 90 years. And the only deterioration in it is about a 1/16 of an inch in the surface structure. That came in to be made into a tabletop. But that has been exposed to the weather on the beach for 90 years.
And that bathtub there, what's that? That's also Huon pine?
This is Huon pine. This was an old bathtub that was probably convict built. Is reputed to have come out of the convict buildings in Launceston, the old jail. Later it was used in one of the hotels here until modern baths came in, and then of course it was wound up for woodcarver's material.
Bob is a full-time woodcarver and he cannot keep up the supply of Huon pine carvings to meet the demand. Collectors are snapping up these delicately made items not only for their artistic value but for the Huon pine itself. Bob salvaged this piece of timber from an old hotel in Hobart. Huon pine is in high demand because of its durability. This, combined with its slow growth rate, has caused its downfall. Huon pine is now almost extinct.
Well, is Huon pine easy to work? Well, it's a very, very soft timber. It's very dense in the fibre. It's a very beautiful timber. Well, I think it is one of Tasmania's best timbers. I suppose it would be one of the best wood carving timbers in the world. This came from Corinna, down on the west coast. Most of it comes from the Gordon River, from where the Hydroelectric Commission are building their new dams. This is the last of the actual Huon pine. I don't suppose there'll be much more for the taking after this lot's gone.
But when you work these, do you have a pattern, or do you just start?
Oh, no, no, except on small things you have a pattern for these small things, but everything being handmade, all has its own individual characteristic. Yes,
keep working.
But as for patterns, not at all. We just select native animals and birds, flowers and so forth. It's the timber that dictates the style of thing. You can get some quite magnificent ones coming down, going up, and so forth, but there's never any two that are identical.
That looks almost as if the piece of timber was that shape, wasn't it?
That was a piece of wood, a piece of Huon pine that I picked up on the beach, and it is actually that shape. I just shaped it into this figure of a Madonna, but it was that shape.
And the chair, did you make that?
Yes, the chair, this timber was cut in 1831, and served as a church pew up till about 1970, when I salvaged the timber and made it into this chair, this spinning chair. It's an old English type of three-legged spinning chair or corner chair. And the timber, although it's been down since 1831, is as good today as when it was actually cut. It's magnificent timber, it never deteriorates.
That's the second piece of furniture.
This is the second piece of furniture, and we'll see probably my lifetime out, and someone else can make another piece of furniture after it then.
To answer Suzanne's letter, we go to Hobart to meet Cecil Eyre, who makes spinning wheels from Huon pine.
Spinning wheel, I'm making it out of Huon pine. The advantage of Huon pine is, of course, apart from the fact that it's being so strange, has an oily nature and doesn't move. It's only found in Tasmania to any extent, although there are one or two species very similar found in Peru, in South America. The Huon pine itself takes an enormously long time to grow. In fact, a tree 2,500 years old was recently cut down in the Gordon River. It's one of the best timbers, I'd say, to use on a lathe.
Cecil's Huon pine wheels are made to his own design and very popular in Tasmania. With the increased interest in traditional crafts, spinning and weaving guilds are being formed all over the country. Mrs. Eyre tests all the finished wheels. She doesn't regard this as a chore, but as an enjoyable and relaxing pastime. This one is for their 9-year-old granddaughter.
Right, the wheel has its traditional names and all the parts of it. These are the maidens, and they're held by the mother of all. And of course these are the standards and the footman and the pedal. And the fellows form the wheel. Now the other part, this is called the lazy Kate. The purpose of that is to hold the spun wool so that it can be replied at a later time.
There's a very interesting story about spinning. Years and years and years ago, when people had to make their own clothing, spinning had to be done by the families themselves. So the first daughter born in a family was taught to spin at the age of about 6 years old and was never allowed to play or have any other activities except spinning, for she had to clothe the family. And then when her sisters married, she had to spin to clothe the families of the sisters until the sister had a daughter that could take over from her. So this poor girl had to spin for her whole life. And as she was not allowed to marry, that's how the name spinster came into being. But of course these days people can be spinsters without having even seen a spinning wheel. But
the Huon pine itself these days, there's only a very limited amount of it available. There have been some forests of it, or some stands of it, permanently reserved for the future. But the commercial wood is going to be a thing of the past in a very short time.
The Huon pine's been almost at a dead end for a good number of years. But I suppose the woodcarvers and turners and so forth will find enough small stuff. There's plenty of small stuff to be found.
The beauty of the Huon pine will live on in these works of art.